Bold Black Girls podcast. I'm Aries.
And I am Kim.
We're trucking right along, aren't we?
We are.
This is going to be a fun episode. We're going to talk about the subject
Code switching.
And we're going to jump right in because we don't have time to be playing with y'all. We be talking too much.
We do. About casual conversation.
I know, because then we like catch up regularly.
We do.
So,
all right, so let's jump right into it.
in there.
So back in July, I think you found an event hosted at your school.
Yeah, my alma mater.
Called Black STEM 2.0, Code Switching versus Soul Switching.
Yeah, so the group I had never heard of. They are Black STEM 2.0. I think they're based. Were they based out of Oregon?
Oregon, yeah, Portland,
Oregon. Yeah. So they came to UTD, partnered with T-Mobile, and put together an event called Code Switching or Soul Switching. So, me and Kim were like, what is that about to be about? We gonna get up in there.
It was on a Friday too, a Friday night.
Was it a Friday?
Yeah, because we went somewhere afterwards.
Oh, we did. Yeah. It was a Friday on campus, and it actually had a really good turnout.
Surprisingly, for a Friday evening in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, considering the traffic. So
exactly.
It was good. And they had a panel of about 4 to 5 women.
Yep.
From T-Mobile, I feel like one was from Bone.
Lockheed Martin, I think.
And Blue Cross Blue Shield. And
who else?
Real Page. Mm-hmm. So local companies here in the Fort Worth area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I want to say they had a variety of panelists. Some came from diversity and inclusion,
HR,
IT.
Yeah,
so
it was different ones. They were mostly like, senior level executive women talking about their experience either with code switching or, their opinions on whether you should, whether you shouldn't in a professional environment.
Correct.
Because it's specifically about professional environment,
it is.
I think.
So let's talk about what is code switching.
Yes.
So I looked it up, and it defines code switching as linguistics, code switching or language alternation that occurs when a speaker alternates between 2 or more languages or language varieties in the context of a single conversation. Right.
So the way we kind of interpreted it as we, after the panel and we talked about it a little bit more, was like, we all code switch a bunch of times throughout the day, depending upon who you're talking to,
where you are,
what you're talking about. Exactly. Right. So it's like, when I'm talking to my kids, I talk one way.
When they were hashtag the Black Mama.
Hashtag Black Mama. But
if she's at home.
If I'm at home. Now we're out somewhere, then I'm like, listen here, we're not gonna be. But the unique thing about it was, and someone did use that as an example, was like, when you're talking to like a 2-year-old, you speak 2-year-old language. Right. We're like, you need to go potty, you need to go to the, you're saying different words that are not words you're going to use at work. But I also found that kids learn how to code switch at a young age as well.
They are observant, and they notice.
They pick up on what we do, and they follow suit. And I had a little example that I want to share. Can I share that?
Oh, please.
So, when I first started my other podcast, the Scratching and Surviving podcast, I was using the boys to test like the microphones and stuff and see like how it worked. And I had Marvin with me, and we're just sitting there. I'm like, so tell me about like, what do you like to do for fun, and what do you watch on TV? He was talking about YouTube. So I'm like, okay, so who do you watch on YouTube? Why do you like them? And all that. So he watches these guys, Kev and Jones. That's like, I found out that other kids, that's like a popular group of guys. They're influencers. They're YouTubers. He was putting me on, about who he is, how many followers. They have sponsors. Like, they know all of the game on the YouTube world. So he says, I said, so why do you like Kevin, so much, and Jones, right? And then he's like, he kind of like leaned over. He knows that podcasting is something that people from all over the place can hear it. So he was like, smart. He leaned over, he was like, are there other people going to hear this? And I'm like, yeah, but just keep going, right? Like, this is just us right now. And he's like, okay. So I'm like, why do you like him? He's like, I don't know, I just like him. He wasn't answering honestly. And I'm like, but why though? Like, you're not answering it. And so once I stopped recording, I'm like, why didn't you want to tell me why you don't like them? He was like, well, because white people might be listening, and I didn't want to say I like them because they're black guys. Like, they're black guys on YouTube doing stuff fun. They see the representation. That's what they're connecting to. It's like, oh, these are some brothers, you know, we're looking at these guys. And he knew that that could offend someone just by saying he liked them because they're black, which I was like you can say what you want to say.
He was
like,
being sensitive to their feelings and perhaps going to Awana.
He was going to, yes, he was being very conscious of that. But that is a part of like how code switching works is you adjust to your environment. You adjust, like, you're like, I'm not going to go all the way there because I don't want to offend anybody, or I want to make sure that I'm communicating in a language that other people can understand and relate to, right? So that, I think, is a lot of different ways that we do it.
And I like how you said conscious. Yes. So he was aware.
Yes.
He was very aware.
It made me feel a couple different ways because I was like, dang, like, the fact that he has to think that way, I'm just like, man, at a young age, we already start thinking,
developing, how
do I not offend, people or whatever.
Right. So, it could be a good and a bad thing because he has empathy. Mm-hmm. He's being compassionate. And in another instance, it could be he's putting someone else's feelings before his.
That's true. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, this is Marvin, so I don't know. Ooh. But anyway.
So, do you code switch?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I definitely code switch because I mean, you have to. I mean, you have to if you want to be an effective communicator. You need to be able to communicate with everybody that you're dealing with in whichever scenario. So, like, if I'm at work, I know that work is a professional environment. I have to speak in professional language for them to even hear what I'm saying. If I'm in the hood somewhere, I'm speaking in hood language. If I start speaking like, yes, and so we're over here, they're going to be like, who the hell are you talking to?
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
They're like, what? I mean, you just really, because it's like, why are you talking to me like this? Like, that's not how we talk, over there. So it's you adjust to who you're talking to. When I'm with my family, I talk a different way than I do when I'm at a networking event.
Correct.
And it's not that I'm changing who I am. I'm just adjusting to my people, who my audience.
Yep. And I was just going to say, I code switch quite a bit. I think it's a skill.
Oh, it is.
It's absolutely a skill. Knowing your audience, too, because I do have a persona, a corporate Kim, as I like to say. I can turn it on or I can turn it off. It depends. I'm always on conference calls, so, of course, you need to be professional. Whereas if I'm talking to the kids, corporate Kim is out the door.
Exactly. Fun Kim comes in.
Yeah, maybe. It depends. But I would definitely say I code switch, and I have been... We've probably been code switching since
birth.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I remember, and I don't know if I talked about it on this podcast, but when I first heard my mom code switch in a professional setting, I was like, who is this? Like, she was answering the phone, and she was yelling at us before that, like,
yes.
And this is when she was like really, really thugged out, right? She's way better now. She's transformed her life. But this is thugged out Janet, okay? And she was going in on us, and the phone rang. And she answered the phone. She's like, hello. And they're like, I guess they're like, can I speak to Janet? And she's like, this is she. Da-da-da. Like, she just started talking, and we were looking like, you did not just change like that.
I'm going to say, I think black mamas have to code switch quite a bit. Quite a bit. I mean... I'm going to use you and Mona as an example. I mean, I've called you all before. And, of course, like, you see my name. And so you're talking to your kids. Marvin, LJ. Hold on 1 second. And then you come back. Hi, what's going on? You just code switch right there in the car. Right. Mona does it all the time. Bryson Kennedy, stop. Mm-hmm. Hey, Shy, how you doing?
Exactly. You just totally turn into a whole
right.
different...
So I feel like people naturally, especially black women, naturally code switch.
And another way is like let's say my friend would call me on the phone. Lauren, she'll call me, let's say I answer, I'm in the office, so I'm like, hello. And she's like, you at work? She's like, you at work, huh? Like, she can tell the difference between my work voice than my regular.
Right.
Hey, girl, hey. You know, when she
you
usually calls like, girl, what's going on? You know. But usually I'm like, hello? Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, I'm going to give you a call back later.
I do that all the time.
She's like, oh, you at work.
Right. You know when your friends are at work. Oh, you're whispering, your tone is lower, you're not as loud.
Exactly.
Okay, so we know you have a corporate Aries, we have a casual Kim, casual Aries. Let's talk about the event itself. So they showed a TED Talk, and the TED Talk was code switching. It was a young lady, I want to say, out of Florida. And so a couple of things that popped out for me was cultural compatibility and how she said code switching could have resulted in life or death because of the scenario that happened that led up to her, giving this TED Talk. I want to say the story was around, she was at home, the blinds were closed, but they saw some movement, a neighbor, so they called the police.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
But yeah, so she says the police come to her house with guns drawn. Like, was it guns drawn?
Yes.
I feel like it was real. They're she had to prove that she lived there. Like, it was a whole situation to where she's like, if I couldn't communicate in a clear fashion, if I was justifiably irate about the situation, it could have resulted in her getting shot or anything. But the fact that she was able to be calm it down, speak in their language or whatever, it eased the situation. But she's like, what if it wasn't me? What if it was somebody who was a black guy? What if he had a hoodie on?
Right.
What if, whatever, but he still lived there. And she referenced Henry Louis Gates' situation where he had the same thing happen to him in his house, full on police altercation, and I remember Barack Obama going to they did a recording where they were talking on the porch one day, having some beers about this situation, because it's real and it happens so often. You'll see, and this kind of goes into a whole nother situation when it comes to this TED Talk, but where you'll see when it comes to race a difference with how the police will treat you based on how you respond, even if you're being super as calm as possible. Any show of irritation, things like that,
frustration,
it's different based on, you can see the difference in how they respond based on race. Because if you're just wait a minute, what you doing, da, 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 and then they're hold on, you're getting hurt. They have a reason to kind of come at you a certain way. So we have to be more aware of that kind of stuff as we function on a daily basis sometimes.
And we have to also educate our kids. I mean, especially black children, but in particular black males.
Yes, because I started educating my kids at a very young age, unfortunately, for all kind of things like that. But it all has to do with, like I said, they are observing me. They're observing the situation. They're oh, so when she's at the school, this is how she acts. When she's over here, this is how she, so.
This when she's with her friends, she's like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all still you, but it's just you adjusted to the situation.
So since we're talking about that and just going a little bit deeper, at the event there were several questions posed. One question was, do you lose yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, code switching, I'm going to still continue to be Kim, no matter where I'm at the end of the day.
Kim will introduce herself as Killer Kim in a professional setting. I mean,
well, it just depends.
Sometimes.
I have to take a poll. I come in and I figure out who my audience is. And once I get comfortable enough, especially, that's a way for me to help people remember who I am. They're not going to forget Killer Kim.
Because Kim is a common name.
And And I'm like, but I preface it with, Kim kills it professionally.
I like that.
Right? So that they know I'm not out here really killing.
Oh, I'm a thug.
Right. No, because that's not what I am. And when I put it that way, they're like, oh, okay. And they never forget. So I am Kim no matter who I'm talking to at the end of the day. Because you brought up something really good when we were talking earlier about if you ask 3 people.
Yeah, so there was a article that came up on Twitter or something this week, and they were talking about this lady who's a CEO of a company, and she says, I ask the same 3 questions every interview, and it was if you were talking to your best friends, how would they describe you in 3 words, and then your employees or your manager, like how would they describe you, and it was somebody else. And basically her thought process behind it was like, what I'm looking for is that you're still, that shouldn't change that much
consistently
around
character. That's your consistent character.
However, I will say race does matter, I think, because I do think we adjust a lot more in a professional setting from our regular life. So you may not, I mean, you're going to see some of the same thing, and I am the same person, but I do think, I don't know if the 3 words would be exactly the same. I don't know.
I would say in my current role, yes.
You got a different type of boss.
Yes. And a different type of team. Like, I was one of only, right? And I never felt singled out, right?
That's
Whereas
important.
I've been in other roles where I've kind of maybe felt that way a little.
Mm-hmm. It does depend on the culture, because I think if you're somewhere and you're like, I know I'm the only one, and it's clear that I'm the only one, it feels a lot different than when you have like a inclusive. Like when I worked for Dave, like I never felt none of the stuff that I'm talking about, because it was just a whole different environment. So it does matter if your direct manager or whatever is intentional about making you feel.
And your colleagues.
Because then you can't really bring your whole self to work.
Correct.
You can't otherwise.
And that's emotionally taxing when you can't bring your whole authentic, true self to work.
It's super emotionally taxing.
Yeah, and for me, if I can't, then I really don't want to be part of that team or that organization. That's just my personal
I agree.
choice. So let's talk about code switching and assimilation.
Ooh. Yeah, and I feel like you'll see a lot of this now where it's like, that's not the game. The game is not to assimilate.
Right.
I think we need to really learn to embrace our differences and stop trying to melt them all together. That's not intentional inclusion to me. I think it is celebrating all our differences and saying, oh wow, like I learned something new about you today. Like this is and now you can do whatever you want. You can come bring some of your food from home, or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I never had this before, and we're learning about each other. But when you feel like, that's when people talk about losing themselves.
Yep.
Because you thinking now you're one of them, and you're not. Like you are not one of them. You are yourself. Be you and help share you with other people so they can learn, oh, I can be comfortable in this environment, so.
And that might require you being a little vulnerable.
Oh, a lot vulnerable.
Yeah. So like for me, I mean, we have conversations. I've had conversations with my boss like, I'm a #Black mama.
Right.
Right? So you know who I am. And that is something that they learned about me. Like, wow, I've shared stories about how I have discipline. Mm-hmm. And they've shared stories about either how they have discipline or they've been disciplined before. And we've kind of compared and contrast, like, yeah, so my mother did this versus what their mom did. Right. And it just was a unique experience. And you say, okay, that makes sense why they are the way they are, right?
And that's what somebody was asking me about the whole kind of losing yourself thing.
Yes.
Was like, do you feel like you can lose your blackness, like as you're trying to do all this? And I'm like, no.
Right.
I know me personally, I don't think that's even possible.
No, it's not.
I'm so black, it's not even funny. But also, when you know who you are, this is the key to all of this stuff. You know who you are. You keep that in mind. And like, let's say one lady was like, why do I have to change who I am for this? Like, why I can't just be myself? Like and I felt her heart like in that situation. And someone had a really great response of, like, it's all scenario driven. Like, if you want to be in a professional environment, you have to adjust to what that looks like. Now, as the professional world is kind of conforming with the millennials and the Gen Zs, kind of shaking things up a little bit from like the old way things were. Working is very different now. If you go work at a startup, it's going to feel a lot different than it does going to work at a corporate, AT&T or something that's been around for a gazillion years. But you don't lose who you are, because in your mind, you're like, this is the area that I work in. I need to be able to, communicate with the people that I'm working with in this environment. If I'm a lawyer, I wear a suit to work, you know,
Right.
most of the time, or to court or something. Like, there's protocol and kind of like certain standards in every industry.
Right. I mean, it's just like going to the gym, right? You're at work during the day, and then you have to adjust. So you go change into workout clothes. You get into a different mode. So you're just adjusting to the environment that you're in.
Right. And I think, and that's why I like the title was like, or soul switching. Because it's like, I think the soul switching part is like, if you totally, now you've taken on a whole different persona.
You're trying to become something that you're not, that's not truly who you are.
Right. You can do all this with being yourself.
You should be able to.
You know, because even if you're in a blue collar job, right? You're not coming up in there with a briefcase, you know. Like, look at all. They were like, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, so like you got to be able to fit in where.
And if you do have to change yourself, then that's probably not the job or the organization for you.
And you can tell. You'll feel like this not me. Like it's not feeling right or whatever. And then you don't do it.
Because that will not only be mentally taxing, emotionally. I mean, it will just impact your entire life, the way you have to navigate life, period.
That emotional tax thing you were just talking about. It's like, it is stressful. You're like, okay, I'm tired of this all day. Like, you do that for 8 hours or more, you're not going to make it during the week. You're going to be ready to just, like, go crazy.
And, you know, going back to what she said, I think sometimes it's the importance of how you say things and what you say. So, you know, sometimes, so you can't take that street language and bring it into corporate mirror.
Yes. There's professionalism, and I think Amanda Seales said it best, was like, it almost is a, how did she say it? Professionalism has been basically, it equates like passive aggression almost. Like, you can't just say, why the hell you not reading my emails? I already told you. You know, like, you can't say that to someone at work, so you have to get creative on how we communicate in a professional environment.
Which is a great segue into corporate clapbacks,
oh,
right?
Yes.
So, I mean, there is a YouTube video circulating with Kev on stage about corporate clapbacks. So, kind of going to what you said, I like to call myself queen of corporate clapbacks. And I would say that clapbacks is not just for African Americans.
It's not.
Right?
We all do it. Everyone
It's really
does
a form of CYA.
It is.
And that's something that my mother taught me long ago.
What's CYA, Kim?
Cover your you know what.
Assets.
Right. So my mother taught me a long time ago, make sure no matter where you are, you CYA. So that means putting it in writing. So kind of going back to what you said, per my last email.
Exactly.
Per our last discussion.
Yes.
Hence thereforth, I am currently at capacity.
How about we hop on a call to clarify further if there's any misunderstanding?
Could you please expound?
Help me understand. That's what I
like
love.
that one.
Help me understand.
And you know, you have to set the stage, because sometimes I know black women can come across as aggressive.
Angry black women.
Yes. And we're not necessarily aggressive or angry. We're passionate.
We are passionate.
Amanda Seales says it all the time. We're passionate. And I think black women, blacks in general, and then depending on where you're from demographically, I use my hands when I speak, right? And
Jacqueline
I never noticed
talked about that.
She did.
She was at that,
And so I like how she prefaced it is, when you have a discussion, let them know, hey, I use my hands when I talk, so I'm probably going to be using my hands just to set the stage, because you want to make sure it's not I'm trying to use the right word.
You don't want to come off
aggressive,
but you don't, or
it's
hostile.
Like
hostile, but you're kind of releasing all of the things that people might already, you're getting rid of all that stuff, where they're going to be like on defense. You're kind of bringing them down, like, hey, let me level set so that we can communicate effectively. So sometimes you'll get those emails where, what if the email you got was just hella aggressive though? Like, it was like, and when I get those, I'll be like, okay, I need to take a minute before I respond, first of all. When I do, I'm like, okay, well, thank you for bringing that up. Here the bullet points of what really is about to go down, or what really went down already. I've already CC'd you on that last week's email. That's at the cover. Why CYA is because you got to make sure you're not giving any opportunity for
Exactly.
foolery.
So, typically, I will read the email. I may go for a walk because I've had to actually do that recently, probably within the last 12 months. Yeah, someone sent something that was inappropriate. And then I have a confidant at work where I'll say, hey, can you take a look at my response, right?
That's good.
I always get another opinion to make sure it's safe.
I've been the person who was helping someone read through an email before they sent it. Like, I was that person.
I've been that person. I've been on both sides where I've actually had to get input from someone, and I was also one to help them put it together. But I always say get a second opinion, just to get their feedback.
Make sure it doesn't sound too much
offensive, right? So,
because sometimes you're using your emotion to respond,
and you have to take the emotion out.
And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. That's where just self-management and self-control.
And some things may not warrant an email. It might warrant hey, can we go for a walk? You have time? I would love to go for a quick walk, some coffees. Let's talk about that.
And I would put it in email, though.
It depends on what it is.
I'm responding.
Some stuff I don't want to put in email.
No.
Oh,
I'm responding to the email like, hey, you know what? I'm going to come by and let's discuss it.
Okay.
That way, it's not an email, but
it's setting the stage that we're going to have a
I did respond, because you can be like, well, you didn't respond. No,
That's
I responded, and then we spoke about it.
Okay.
Because you can really get in some big trouble over some emails. I mean, I'm good for, if we go back and forth, I'm giving us 3 back and forths on something before I'm like, let's hop on a call, let's meet up, something like that. Because, communicating via, any kind of text other than verbal, it can leave room for miscommunication. So I think it's all about how you communicate. Everything about code switching, everything about corporate clapbacks, all that stuff is straight
communication.
Effective communication.
I agree. And, because
they don't know you clapping back on.
That's true.
I mean, usually.
They need a class for that.
How to do effective corporate
clapbacks.
I mean, they got lists of them all over the place. You can just, copy.
So I'm sure somebody's going to create a master class.
You learn as you go. Because nobody taught you how to do it.
They really did.
I didn't get taught how to do it.
So how do we prepare the next generation for that?
You saw what kind of emails I used to send when I first started working.
Yes. Woo.
I showed Kim some of my old emails, and she was like, I had no corporate clapbacks. I was just like, this is not working. Our processes are this way. We need to change this.
She's been bold a long time, longer than I have.
This is not, we need to, everyone be on the same page. People are coming in, they're being taught one thing, like, I was just complaining.
But you had a solution.
I did have answers. Like, when I come complaining, I usually have answers. But still,
I tell everybody, if you're going to complain, always come with a solution, at least.
Yes.
Or be willing to work through a solution.
Be the lead on it.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's usually what,
That's what ends
up happening.
So sometimes I don't always complain, because I know
you're like, I don't want to be
I don't want to, So let's talk about what the call to action here is, because we're going to make this a short episode. So I would say one call to action is, and we've talked about this, is continue to be you, authentically you, right?
Yeah.
I would say also, going back to communication, like maybe seek out a professional development course in effective communication. I mean, I've taken one before. I've taken an emotional intelligence class, a business writing, and sometimes it's just
interpersonal communication classes are really good. Kim said they don't have that anymore, or they didn't have that.
I don't even know if they use that term anymore.
But interpersonal is really just how you communicate with another person, more so in a one-on-one situation. Because you could choose between public speaking and interpersonal back in the day. So, most people were like, I don't want to be no public speaker. Now, look, I'm the one out here.
I took interpersonal communication.
But interpersonal, you're learning, like, there are filters that people have when they're receiving. You have to you don't control the filters, because some of that is based on their past, their history, what they're used to,
Right.
So their defenses might be up a certain way that you don't even have any clue on. So you can't control that. But what you can do is try to eliminate as many of the barriers on your side of the communication to make it easier for them to receive. And that's really, I think the key. And when you start doing that, that's how you can create those corporate clapbacks
Yep.
that are effective because you're like letting them know, you know, what's going on, but in a way that still kind of keeps
Subtle.
it cool.
Yeah. And you actually suggested something. I think this was you. Did you say you took an improv class?
Yes.
I would say an improv class would be excellent because then you can put that into action, right? Actually
Right on the spot.
practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about the improv class myself because a lot of times like you don't know how you're gonna react until you put in that situation. But if you can practice it, maybe you'll be ready.
Exactly.
Right?
Because it's like you just get put in these scenarios that you don't know what's going to happen. They'll just throw something at you and, you know, you got to go off your first thought or, you know, whatever. But there are so many other ways. And also maybe just getting you a coach,
Yep.
you know, an executive coach or career coach. They have all kind of coaches that can kind of help you with that stuff. But if you're going to be in a professional, this is really specific to, I think, professional environment. There is a lingo. There's a way people do things with the emails. Don't be copying everybody on the doggone email.
Yep.
And because there is a language under the actual words where it's like, oh, you copying my boss. You're trying to snitch on me. You're trying to tell on me instead of working with me. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And,
you know,
and
and you're creating something that may not be wanting to be.
Right. And I tell people all the time, you never know who you're going to work for or with in the future. So you want to protect the relationship as much as you can and cultivate a positive relationship
As much as you
at
can.
all possible.
Because you're working. I mean, now the thing that sets us apart is if you're in a toxic work environment. And that's a whole nother episode. Go listen to Secure the Seed episode, something 2-3 episodes ago where they're talking about how to find out if you're in one. Because I was like, ooh, I was in a whole bunch of toxic work environments.
Oh, wow.
That I didn't even realize. But yeah, so that's a whole nother situation. But if you're in a good culture, good work environment, then
culture matters.
it matters. It definitely matters.
It matters.
But these things, you know, you can really have a lot more power in. You don't have to be reactive. You can respond with,
yes,
you know, with the accurate amount of corporate clapbacks that you need.
And you know, you can even I practice with Kiara. Like I had to learn not to react and learn to respond to her. And sometimes I'm like, okay, take 2 minutes, just let it process, think about it, and then respond.
Yeah.
And that helped me in the professional setting.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff I feel like you can practice in your daily life. I do it with the kids all the time just because I'm like, I want to be better at. I get so upset at myself when I let someone like kind of control what I'm doing. It's like, you let that take you out of your character or like make you respond a certain way that you really didn't want to respond, but you just couldn't help yourself because of this person. And it's like, no, like if you really want to be a person who's in control, who you know who you are, that's number one. Because when you do, you don't have to feel like you're proving yourself or your pride is not in the way and all that kind of stuff. This is stuff, like I said, I was teaching Marvin. I'm like, if you know the facts, you know that these are the facts. And someone else is like, no, it's not. No, it's not. You know, LJ usually like, nah. And I'm like, but you know that that's true. So why are you about to go back and forth with this person?
Yep.
Ain't going back and forth. Like, why are you going back and forth when you know what the truth is? Like, you should just be like, okay, that's cool.
I do that a lot.
Moving on, next. You know?
And then I can prove it in writing.
Exactly. You're like, well, Article 5, Section 1.2. Here is the quotes highlighted in yellow. You know, now that's a corporate clapback for you. We're like, let me see the attached email where we communicated back and forth about this. You know, you can do that without. You know.
Or I'm good for a great screenshot.
Yep. Oh yeah, screenshots are powerful.
Powerful.
So you just gotta get your strategies in place. It's not all to be, you know, have an attitude or try to check somebody. Some of this is really just effective communication so that some people might have 1 million emails. They're just hurrying up, rushing. You don't know what the back story is to why.
Sometimes grace. Like, people are people, right? And we all make mistakes. No one's perfect. So I'm also like, okay, well, maybe they didn't know. Because
you'll be like, it's days where I'm like, I just don't have time. I'll be like, great, thank you for your blah, blah. Like, there's a standard kind of wording you put in there so it's soften it up because I'm like, I want to just be like, no, that's not what it was. Okay, great, thanks, bye. Like, in my mind, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not even tripping on it. But when someone reads it, like, why was she so short? Why was she saying it like that? What's going on? Like, they don't know. So you have to kind of, just like you would do in a text message, you know, to someone where you're like,
it's really knowing your audience.
Saying, good morning. I'm checking in to the, you know.
Yeah.
So it's all. It's
some
all
people like short.
Yeah. I mean, and it depends because you just.
I don't want an essay as an email.
Because I can't read all that.
I probably won't read it.
Be like, can we get on the call? Because I don't have time to read this.
Really. And please don't send a font that I can't read.
There's other.
Like a. It's this. I
like
don't
script?
Yes. I was like, I'm not.
Who does this?
Oh, there are people.
I already can tell I don't like this person. No, just. Okay, so are we going to end this episode?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to end it because we have more episodes.
We got more stuff to do. We don't have time, y'all. We are really trying to get.
And we're preparing for our upcoming event.
We are. So I'm glad you said that. That was a perfect segue. So, for those of you, first of all, those of you who are watching on YouTube, subscribe and like. And then those of you who are on iTunes, Spotify, whatever, Google, wherever they have like a like, rating, all that stuff, rate and review the podcast. We would prefer 5 stars. Thank you to all the people who have already rated. We got a rating last week from another podcast, Zach from the Living Corporate. So we like to hear from other people. Let us know if it's impacting you. We got some requests for future episodes. So we are listening. Communicate with us. Let us know what's going on. Now, we need you to go to, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Women of Color, secureyourseat.eventbrite.com to get your tickets for our September 20th event with Mend to Hearts as we have a live podcast recording. We already got a whole bunch of tickets, y'all, so please get your tickets. Yes. We got about 2 weeks or 3 weeks left, so get your tickets now because I can already tell it's about to be hot up in there.
It is. So, and her book is already best-selling on Amazon.
Yes, and so we gotta, after this event, we're not gonna be able to get her no more for, you know.
And it's the lean in book for women of color.
Yeah, it's basically that same type of business book that we have not had, like specifically for women of color. That's not just Black women. That is any woman that represents a woman of color, Hispanic, yes. All the different ones, but we just really want to see you in the room. You get to meet us live. And it's going to be awesome. So we got a lot of stuff going on.
Come out and network with other women, right?
Yes. We're going to have some drinks for you. Yep. It's a pregame before you go out. So I think it's going to be really good. And
we're looking forward to seeing you there. And even if you aren't a woman of color, we would love to see you and have you there because we're always looking for allies. And we're going to share some of the things that you could potentially help us with and maybe how we can help you.
Exactly. So, I think that that's really important because you get to kind of hear some of the inside scoop on what we talk about with each other. You know what I mean? Right. So that's really what we want this podcast to be about anyways, which is where anybody can listen and like through our life experiences, right, hear some of the things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So anyway, we'll look forward to seeing you then, and we will holler at you on the next episode.
So have a bold week.
Holla.
Bye.